Hey, I'm Theo and thank you for joining me again. Today I want to make a follow-up to my previous video of 10 worst legendaries, with of course the 10 best legendaries in 10 years of Hearthstone. Now just like that video, this one has a few rules. First of all, we're looking at cards based mostly on their time in Standard, but I'll also be looking at how the card did in Wild and see if it had any impact there. Also, I'll be grouping similar cards together so we don't end up with multiple quests in the top 10. Anyway, before we get started, if you like these type of videos, consider liking and subscribing to help the channel. So let's get started with number 10. We have Dr. Boom, also known as Dr. 7 from Goblins vs. Gnomes, a 7 mana 7/7 with Battlecry summon 2 1-1 boom bots that deal 1 to 4 random damage when they die. Now this card was played in almost any deck back when it got released. It was played in aggro decks, mid-range decks, control decks, just maybe not in combo decks. And yeah, this was so common that for almost any deck was running a Big Game Hunter to counter this. Removal back then was a lot weaker, so this card didn't really have a lot of answers, and Big Game Hunter basically was the best one any deck could run. And it was just really strong when it came down on 7, or if you were Druid on 2. It really decided a lot of matchups, because the boombots alone could kill something like an Edge Drake, which was very common at the time, and just get an insane tempo advantage and would win you the game. So that's why it's at number 10. Then at number 9, we have Yuron. Not the original one, but the third version of it, which is Yuron Unleashed. Now, this card, when it was launched, was a 50 mana 7/5 Titan with 3 abilities. And since this card got revealed, it basically defined the meta, especially in decks like Rogue and Druid. It got cheap real fast, and it basically made their downsides of not having board clears go away. And this card basically made board matter a whole lot less. This card was so strong that it had to get reworked within a month, and I don't think a card ever has been reworked that fast. If this card was like its original form in Standard for a lot longer, this might have been a lot higher on the list, maybe even number 1. That's how strong this card was. But because it was only for 1 month in its original form, I'll put it at number 9. Because also, well, the current form is still pretty good, but yeah, definitely not as good as it was. But yeah, its original form was so insanely strong, I think I had to put it in the top 10. And then we have Trazza, a 9 mana 8/8 dragon. Battlecry set a hero's remaining health to 15. There were Sylvanas and Ragnaros being played a lot. And yeah, Leroy was very common. But I think in the end, the fighting card from Classic was Trazza. This was played in the control combo decks for so long and really made a lot of combo decks work. It also worked in control decks well, because often you didn't deal damage early on, and then later in the game you could get ahead by sending your opponent to 15, or you could get low and then heal yourself to 15. And believe it or not, but back then 15 health was quite a lot, and you were pretty safe at 15, so this could often win a game against aggro decks. And for years that really made a lot of decks work, and that's why it's at number 8. And at number 7 we have Loatheb, a 5 mana 5/5. Battlecry, enemy spells cost 5 more next turn. So this card is very old, but it's was really good. Back then it got released almost as a counter to Miracle Rogue, which was kind of the best deck. And then this, yeah, when the opponent played something like Gadgetzan, you could play this as counter, then they couldn't draw with it. But really what turned out was that this card basically got used by Miracle Rogue better than other decks. But also, it's even when it was a standard, it got played in so many decks, but after that in Vault, still saw a ton of play. It still sees a ton of play, because it doesn't matter how powerful the meta is. Making cards or spells cost 5 more, it's still always powerful. And then number 6, we have Shadowwalk, a 9 mana 6/6. Battlecry repeats all other battle cries from cards you played this game. So yeah, this card basically defined Shaman for quite a while. It still has, of course, the Shadowwalk Shaman deck in Vault 2. And this was just very strong. The most famous version, I think, is the one where you go infinite with this and kill your opponent with the Life Drinker Battle Cries. This is also the head you can get with Hearthstone Brew right now. This was really good. You could survive for a while you played your combo pieces. And then you go infinite with Shadowwalk, then get the Serenade Chain Gang Battlecry to copy Shadowwalk, and then Grumble to get one of your hand back for 1 mana, and then you could play it again, and you get multiple Shadowwalks back again. And you could do this over and over. Although sometimes it could fail, where Grumble went first, and maybe Zola went first, and then Serenade Chain Gang happened. But most of the time, you had a good chance of getting it copied, and then once you got it copied once, you always went infinite. And that made this card an extremely powerful card that kind of always won the late game, and that's why it's at number 6. Now, at number 5, we have a hero card, and yeah, there've been a lot of hero cards, a lot of good hero cards. I don't think has been a single bad hero card. And yeah, we of course started with hero cards during Knights of the Frozen Throne, with the Death Knights back then, as we called them. Then there were some in between as well, some hero cards. We had hero cards with Son of Dragons, with the Galacrons for a couple of classes. And then more recently we had in Altmark Valley hero cards. And yeah, a lot of good hero cards, but I think overall the strongest hero card we've ever had has been Wildheart Guff, a 5 mana hero card. Battle cry set your maximum mana to 20, gain an empty mana crystal, draw a card, and the hero power that you get is gain an empty mana crystal or draw a card, choose one. And this card really defined Druid for the time it was in Standard. Being able to set your mana above 10 is just so good, especially for so little as this card cost. Before the nerfs, this was basically a 4 mana card because you gained a full mana crystal when you cast it. So the hero power basically only cost 1, and then you got that investment immediately back the next turn, and then you got all the bonus mana the following turns. Extremely good, and made for a bunch of good combos with Druid, and that still also sees play to this day in Wild in slower Druid decks. And the fact that this card could just break one of Hearthstone's rules for just so little, it just made this card extremely good, and that's why this card is at number 5. At number 4, we have a Highlander card. Ever since its introduction with Reno Jackson back in the League of Explorers, Highlander cards have been pretty good, besides maybe Inkmaster Solia. Recently we had Reno Lone Ranger, extremely good in the Badlands. But I think overall, the best Highlander card we've had is Zephyrus the Great, a 2 mana 3/2. Battlecry if your deck has no duplicates, wish for the perfect card. Now, this has been one of the most unique cards we've ever had in Hearthstone, and it was kind of the Swiss Army knife of Hearthstone. You could get whatever you wanted, although it was kind of limited, because it was based on a classic card pool with some limitations. And Zephyrus didn't always do what you wanted, but most of the time, if you got some practice with him, you kind of knew what he was going to do, and it was really good. You could get a board clear later in the game if you wanted. You could get Bloodlust for lethal, Fireball for lethal. You could get a single target removal if you needed, or just play it on 2 to get a Wild Trove. This card was extremely versatile and just fixed whatever was needed during the game, and that's why it's at the spot at number 4. And then for the next card, we have a special guest to introduce it. Take it away, Zeddy.
This is like the worst card in the entire set. Baku the Moon Eater. This card is terrible. There's never a world where you can play a 9 mana card that does nothing and has shit stats. Like, this is a 0-star card. It's terrible. It's bad. Bad, 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 bad. Disenchant. Disenchant this card. Don't waste your time.
Yes, a 0-star card. Don't waste your time with this card. Baku the Moon Eater. Also, we had Gen. I think Gen was slightly weaker than Baku, although Gen does see play still right now in Wild. But I think overall, Baku has seen more play and has been stronger. This card enabled so many decks. You had Odd Warrior, Odd Hunter, Odd Paladin, Odd Mage, and more. It basically defined the meta for the whole year it was in Standard, because yeah, it was only a whole year, because this was the only card Blizzard has ever taken out of the game earlier than expected. After 1 year, just set to Baku and again, yeah, these cards are too strong. We gotta take them out of Standard. And yeah, that's basically why they're at number 3. And then at number 2, we have a quest. The quest started back in Journey to Ungoro. There's normal quests. Since then, we've also had side quests. And in Stormwind, we had quest lines. And there's been quite a few good quests. Initially, we had the Caverns Below, the Rogue quest, which was really good, one of my most hated cards of all time. There's also been Open the Waygate for Mage, although that never really saw play much in Standard. During the time, it's been mostly a wild card. But I think overall, recently, the quest lines have been the strongest out of the quest. And of those quest lines, I think the strongest one has been the Demon Seed for Warlock. But now, yes, it says quest line, take 10 damage on your turns. Reward lives to do 3 damage to enemy hero. The second part is the same, and then the third part is again, take 10 damage on your turn, and then you get Blightborn Tamsin, which is a 5 mana 7/7 Battlecry for the rest of the game. Damage you take on your turn damages your opponent instead. Now this has 10, 10, and 10 damage, but it was originally 6, 7, and 8 damage for each step. But it got nerfed to 10 damage eventually when it rotated to wild. So what this means is that your fatigue damage gets taken by your opponent, life tap deals damage to the opponent. And yes, this is a very strong card because you can build your deck around it. We saw how powerful this card was back at the start of Stormwind, when it was Stealer Souls at 4 mana. Basically, this deck could kill you at something like turn 5 already, because they could play the whole deck in one turn, because, well, all the cards cost health, and then after you play the quest, well, your opponent pays for it, so you can just play all your cards and kill your opponent in the same turn. Extremely unfun. Besides that, there was also like a Giants deck with it, a Handlock deck with it, where it was more of a bonus win con, but still extremely strong, because, yeah, you basically always won in fatigue, so why not play it? Why not just beat every late game deck just by playing one card? So it was just really good in that as well, and also in Wild, it was so strong that they had to ban this card for over a year in Wild, because they just couldn't figure out a way how to balance this for Wild. So yeah, this card just has been problematic whilst it was in Standard, had to be banned for a long time in Wild, and I think that's why it deserves the spot at number 2. And then at number 1, we have Patches the Pirate, a 1 mana 1/1. After you play a pirate, summon this minion from your deck. Yes, it's a 1 mana 1/1 on the top of the list of best legendaries ever. But yeah, this card has been extremely good. To this day, it's still seeing play in every aggro deck in Wild. It even got nerfed after Wild and Standard. It used to have charge as well. They even had to change the voice line. But yeah, almost every deck in Standard ran this card. Even control decks with no synergy at all ran this card. That's how good it was. Aggro decks ran it, of course, because it was a free early minion. And you had synergies with it early on. You could buff it. And later on, with Corridor Creeper, it made Corridor Creeper go down super fast. Just extremely strong all around during its entire stay in Standard, in Wild, and that's why I think it deserves the spot at number 1. So this is my top 10 strongest legendaries. I had to leave out some really strong legendaries, but yeah, I can only put 10 cards in a top 10. And if you disagree, which you probably will, because nobody ever has the same top 10 list, please let me know down below. Thank you for watching, and until next time.